It's 7 o'clock. This is a Sky News special on the crisis in the Channel. Tonight, we ask, can the small boats be stopped? The Prime Minister has laid out plans to stop people crossing the Channel from France.
We will detain those who come here illegally and then remove them in weeks.
But there are doubts over the legality of the plan, with Labour describing it as unworkable.
They could be setting out a serious plan today, and we would work with them on it, and so would everyone across the country. Instead, it's just more chaos.
Rishi Sunak insists the legislation is compliant with international law. We'll dive into the detail with an immigration lawyer. And we'll ask, is enough being done to stop those sending the boats, the people smugglers? Good evening and welcome to this special Sky News programme asking, can the small boats be stopped? Well, the Prime Minister has published plans to stop people making the journey across the English Channel. But there are questions over the legality of those plans, with the Home Secretary herself admitting it pushes the boundaries of international law. So what's in the legislation? Let's take a look for you. The Home Secretary will have a legal duty to remove anyone entering the UK illegally. The bill allows the detention of illegal arrivals without bail or judicial review for the first 28 days of detention, or until they can be removed. As of 2021, the UK had just over 2,500 detention places on current levels of migration. That means the UK would be able to accommodate less than 20% of the capacity. Well, migrants won't be able to use modern slavery laws to stop their removal, and challenges will only be heard after they have left the UK. The Home Secretary said she wouldn't address the full legal complexities of the bill, and the government says it isn't sure the bill is compatible with the European Convention on Human Rights. An annual cap on the number of refugees being accepted by the UK will be decided by MPs in Westminster. And migrants arriving by illegal routes risk a permanent ban on settlement, citizenship and re-entry to the UK. Well, despite some concerns, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has insisted the legislation will stand up to any legal tests it encounters.
We will detain those who come here illegally and then remove them in weeks, either to their own country, if it is safe to do so, or to a safe third country like Rwanda. And once you are removed, you will be banned, as you are in America and Australia, from ever re-entering our country.
5 years ago, the then Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, said he was going to make this route unviable. Since then, we've seen tens of thousands of people in the last 5 years. Where do you think your predecessors went wrong? Why are you different? And can I also ask, what does success look like to you? Will you be setting targets for where you want the numbers to be in a year's time?
So this is not about dwelling on the past, because the situation has just got far worse. As I said in my remarks earlier, just in the last 2 years, you talked about when Sajid was Home Secretary, so just in the last 2 years, the numbers of people crossing the Channel illegally have more than quadrupled, right? That is the scale of what is happening, and they're forecast to get worse. Success is us stopping the boats. Success is us having a system that people come here illegally are returned back to their own country where it's safe, or an alternative. We don't believe it is necessary to leave the ECHR. We believe that we're acting in compliance with it and meeting our international obligations, but as I said, also meeting our obligations to the British public to have control over our borders and ensure that it's them and their elected government who's in control of who is coming here.
OK, well, let's discuss the practicalities and legalities of those plans. Joining me in the studio is the immigration solicitor, Harjap Singh Bungle. We also have Kay Marsh from the Dover Migrants' Rights charity, the Samphire Project. And we're set to be joined, hopefully, by the Conservative MP, Danny Kruger, here in the studio. I believe he is on his way. Well, let's first of all talk about the legalities, Harjap, with yourself. The Prime Minister is convinced this is compliant with international law. Suella Braverman, not so convinced in a letter she sent to MPs, which I plan to put to Danny Kruger. I mean, she says we're pushing the boundaries on international law. Is that you're either pushing the boundaries, within the law, or you're breaking it, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, law is quite simple like that. You're either complying with it or you're breaking with it. Pushing the boundaries, the phrase seems like a caveat, just in case, sort of letting you know that, you know what, we're going to have a go, but if it doesn't work out, then I'm going to have a fallback. And I'll say, I did try, and I did have a go, but it hasn't worked out, and I did warn you beforehand, and the blame, no less, well, someone will be blamed, usually judges, lawyers, migrants themselves,
so a bit of
and European courts.
I want to get down into the detail, as we say, that it seems like this might go through a lot of legal contests, shall we say, through the courts, like the Rwanda policy did. There does seem to be a gap between the law of the land. Obviously, if you don't enter the country with a visa, then you are considered illegal. And international law, the Refugee Convention, of course, states that you have a right to enter if you are claiming asylum as a refugee. So where's the gap? Because the government repeatedly used this term, as I've mentioned in our headlines there, anyone arriving illegally. Are refugees illegal?
So to claim asylum is not illegal. The government have made, if you enter the country without a visa, then it's illegal. But it hasn't told us how to legally then claim asylum, because there's no safe way to claim asylum unless you're from Ukraine or Afghanistan or fit into a specific scheme, which we've seen as very limited, and very few visas are granted under that. They're not well run. You might remember the Ukraine scheme where people were running away from Ukraine, ending up in Paris and Calais and trying to claim for asylum, and then told, actually, no, you've got to go back to Ukraine to claim asylum. So they're very shoddy at best. We don't have the infrastructure for this, but we need to consider a scheme or an option, and that's been alluded to today, where people can claim asylum and not risk the journey across, and they have an alternative. If you're not going to give people an alternative and you take away the only method, then I don't think that's really fair, and I don't think that's really going to work. That's akin to saying we don't want anyone here.
To Kay Marsh then. Kay Marsh, will it work? Is this going to act as the deterrent that the government says it wants it to be?
Well, I think first of all, we've seen in the last decade that deterrents simply don't work, do they? This is the only strategy we've had now for quite some time, and the numbers have continued to go up. I think you hit the nail on the head there. We need a safe alternative. At the moment, the safe legal routes that are available are very narrow criteria, and the average person couldn't hope to be helped through them. Which forces innocent people with legitimate claims to asylum into irregular crossings, small boats and the like, and risk their lives. And what choice do they have? This is the point. Rishi Sunak said that the only route into the UK would be a safe and legal one, but of course at the moment we do not have adequate safe and legal routes. It's a no-brainer. It really is.
OK, but it is fair to say, though, the government's point of people risking their lives to make this journey, and not just risking their lives have been lost, young and old. This is a dangerous journey, and it's the criminal gangs that are benefiting from all of this, charging people exorbitant amounts of money as well as their lives being lost on the way. Is this a way of at least protecting migrants and asylum seekers' lives?
I don't think there's any protection built into this new bill at all. It's completely inhumane. We'll see people, the majority of people coming over, innocent, traumatised people, being detained and re-traumatised. How is that fair or humane in any way? No, absolutely not.
OK, Harjap, I want to talk to you about how there to be more legal challenges.
Yeah,
and what could they be potentially?
Definitely legal challenges, but practical problems. So we heard Rishi Sunak say today that we're going to send people back to their country of origin or other safe countries or Rwanda. First of all, Rwanda only has 200 places. We initially agreed 500 places. They came back a week later and said, no, mate, we only have 200 places, right? So that's the first thing that we need to consider. We're not going to get 10,000 people in Rwanda. And I think that's what maybe the British public might have been promised here today or been sold a dream into doing.
And what about the legal challenges? Do you think there are potentially
the
immigration law?
The legal challenges, you can't prevent people from claiming asylum. So it's very contradictory. In one sense, you're saying we're going to send people back straight away, not let them claim asylum. But then why are you going to hold them in a detention centre for 28 days for? And why are you saying we're going to fast track the process? So that means you are considering their claim for asylum and you're going to fast track them. So we need to be clear on that. The other thing is to send people back afterwards, you need to have return agreements. We've only got 6.
So I want to come to you in a minute, actually. Well, one of the main criticisms of the government is that not enough is being done to crack down on the people smugglers providing the small boats and sending them across the Channel. Well, this weekend, our Europe correspondent Adam Parsons spoke to one of those providing the boats and sending people on the dangerous return journey in return for money.
لودم خاون ایشو ناو لندن سوريتو ناو ليدز ناو برمنغهام ناو نيوكاسل بوخو سوريتو ايشيه بزنزيه بوخو لما باكر دخل كان يرتو برضو اخر نفرش خوي سركيتو.
Would it make a difference if people were sent to Rwanda when they arrived? British government has threatened to do this. Would that change the business model?
والله بو امازون بين خلقتي بو بريطانيا نقل رواندا هر خلق او خلق بين ربو امازون هر خلق تي بو بريطانيا.
And our interview was brought up today in the House of Commons by the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, who attacked the government over its inability to bring smugglers to account.
The Deputy Chair of the Conservative Party said yesterday we shouldn't go after the gangs because, well, they've existed for thousands of years. That is the disgraceful Tory attitude that's let the gangs off the hook and letting the gangs take hold. And one smuggler told Sky News yesterday that 3/4 of the smugglers live in Britain, yet barely any of them are being prosecuted, and they still haven't found the hundreds of children missing from asylum hotels who've been picked up by criminal gangs. They could be setting out a serious plan today, and we would work with them on it, and so would everyone across the country. Instead, it's just more chaos.
Well, still with me in the studio for this Sky News special is the immigration solicitor Harjap Singh Pungal. We also have Kay Marsh from the Dover migrants' rights charity, the Samfire Project. And Kay, the trouble is, isn't it, that we're talking about this new policy acting as a deterrent, but it's not a rational decision to get on these boats, is it? It's one that is driven by desperation, and people smugglers, as we've seen just there, will carry on making the money and getting people on boats as long as people are desperate.
Yes, absolutely. As you say, it's not a rational decision. And people don't make these decisions lightly. They make them because they have no other choice. So, yes, they will keep putting money into the pockets of people smugglers because it is pretty much their only option, you know. And I think it's a really interesting point from Yvette Cooper there. The government are very quick to bring up people smugglers all the time, you know, breaking the business model of the people smugglers. Why are they not going after convictions for the people smugglers living in the UK? You know, and maybe that's where their focus should be. But no, you're absolutely right. These are desperate people.
Yeah, and tell me what people tell you about the willingness to risk their lives to take these trips across the Channel.
They don't see any other option. You know, they feel like they're forced into this situation and that they don't have any other option. That's literally what we hear, you know. And I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, what would it take for you to get into a small boat in the middle of winter in a shorts and t-shirt, you know, with your child? You can see, can't you? It is the act of a desperate person and not somebody trying to get themselves £40 a week.
Okay, well, let's turn to you, Harjap. Tell us about the crackdown on people smugglers in the country and whether that is going far enough, in your opinion, as far as the law is concerned, or do there need to be changes in the law as far as that is concerned?
Well, I think we need to get the idea first that there's more money made in people smuggling than there is in drug smuggling. Yet we hear, and a lot of people don't know that, yet we hear about a war on drugs. And we hear about people, special secret services and special agencies going to catch drug warlords, drug barons. You never hear of people smugglers getting caught. And it's not hard to find them because we know, and everyone else seems to know, that they've been operating for the last 20 years while I've been looking at it, from the same coast, Calais, and have been sending people to the same coast, the Kent coast, for 20 years. Now, if we can go and get Osama bin Laden holed up in Pakistan somewhere, and we can go and get Saddam Hussein in his stronghold and put him on trial. Are we really trying to tell the British public that we don't know where these gangs are and we can't get them? That's almost akin to saying that there's a bus driver who drives the same bus for the past 20 years with the same passengers from A to B, and when we ask the government, OK, you need to get the bus driver. Don't know where he is, sorry, he's 20 steps ahead of us.
Where's the problem? Is it the policing? Is it the law? Can the police catch them, but they don't have enough evidence? Or are there not enough laws in place to tackle the criminal?
Well, the government never tell us, and it seems today as if Rishi Sunak has almost said, you know what, we can't catch the gangs, so we're going to punish the users, and we're going to hope that by punishing the users, the gangs are going to go away. The gangs do not care. They're in this business for money, to make money. They don't care what laws are passed in the UK or what doesn't. They're going to put people on a boat regardless. And asylum seekers don't get up in the morning and say, let's find a diggy and just come over. This is organised crime. They pay for a service to come over here. Like I said, it's almost akin to hoping that let's lock up all the drug users and hope that drug dealing stops. It's never going to work.
Kay, we've got about a minute left. I do want to put this to you because time and again we hear the fact that these people are clearly very wealthy. They're paying these drug smugglers a lot of money. Is that relevant in your view?
No, I don't think it is relevant. It's about as relevant as the argument of why do they turn up with mobile phones? You know, these are people from civilized countries. You know, they're normal people. They have normal lives until, you know, disaster hits them one way or another. And when that happens, you liquidate your assets and you get out and you get your family out. You know, this is what you do. So it's not abnormal that normal people would have houses to sell or cars or mobile phones. They're just normal people. I don't know why people expect them to be poverty-stricken. You know, it could happen to anybody.
OK, Kay and Harjap, you're staying with us. This is a Sky News special programme on the crisis in the Channel. Coming up, could the French authorities do more to help crack down on people smugglers and small boats? We'll look ahead to Rishi Sunak's meeting with the French President, Emmanuel Macron.
Desflurane, as you mentioned, is an anaesthetic gas. We have 3 anaesthetic gases and an intravenous agent. There was an acknowledgement a few years back that this gas was much worse than most other gases for the environment. And in fact, we discovered, as you mentioned, it's 2,500 times the amount of carbon dioxide, the effect. So if you use desflurane, for instance, if I use desflurane for 1 day, I would probably have the equivalent mileage of driving over 1,000 kilometres. Whereas if you used an alternative drug, a drug called sevoflurane, it would be about 16 kilometres. So you can understand the desire to try to reduce its use. We started reducing the use in 2017, and in fact, in my own hospital, stopped using the drug in 2019. But up until this year, we still had some small numbers across the UK still using it. The decision this last month in Scotland was to stop the contract for buying it, which will really encourage the decreased use. But in fact, NHS England also have a plan to do the same thing, stop the contract by next spring. So we should have a significant reduction in carbon output. For instance, the difference in Scotland will be about 6.2 kilotons of carbon dioxide saved, and of course that will be reflected across the other nations. So there are a number of things we can do. Obviously, there are specific drugs and gases that we use that we can reduce the use of or mitigate in some way. But there's simple things like reducing energy use, looking at pharmaceuticals getting into the water, even just looking at the single plastics culture that we've developed within healthcare and seeing if we can reverse that trend in a safe way.
Welcome back to this special programme on the crisis in the Channel. We're taking a look at the government's new legislation on illegal migration and asking if the government can deliver on its promise to stop the small boats. Well, I'm joined by the Conservative MP, Danny Kruger. Good to have you in the studio finally. The immigration solicitor, Harjap Singh Pungal. And we also have Kay Marsh from the Dover migrants' rights charity, the Samfire Project. Well, more from them in a moment. But first, we've spoken a lot about what the British government wants to do. But many feel it can only be achieved with the cooperation of the French authorities. Well, later this week, Rishi Sunak will meet with French President Emmanuel Macron. Together, can they do anything to stop people leaving French shores? Well, let's speak to our Europe correspondent, Siobhan Robbins, who is in Dunkirk this evening and has been hearing from those who thinking about making the journey. And Siobhan, what have people there been telling you?
Hi, good evening. Yes, I've been visiting the camps here in Dunkirk and also down in Calais today to talk to people who are there, many of them waiting to make these journeys in the small boats across the Channel, to find out whether this bill will make any difference. And the short answer is, at the moment, no. No one I spoke to knew anything about it. When I explained the detail to them, they also didn't think that it would make that much difference. And you can hear now from a man called Ize. He's planning to make the journey to the UK because his wife is there. She's suffering from cancer, and she's suffering from cancer, and he doesn't believe that if he waited for a visa that he would have time to get there. So for him, he believes that he has to get there as soon as possible. So that's why he's going to risk taking a boat. I spoke to other people as well who were telling me, well, this isn't the beginning of my journey. I've escaped from Afghanistan. I've made this route, for example, through Turkey. Many of them have talked about being beaten and exploited along the route. They've got here. And then when you say to them, you can't do that final leg, well, they're just not going to give up. They've already paid their money to smugglers. And also today, even when this bill was being discussed in the UK, we could overhear conversations within the camps with middlemen who were talking about the weather and clearly working out whether there were going to be any other crossings this week. Because, to be honest, it's not politics which is dictating what's happening in those camps at the moment. It's the weather. Is the wind high enough? Is it too high? Can they get across quickly? And so it's a really massive challenge. As you say, it's one that the UK wants to try and solve in cooperation with France and Europe, and it has been working closer with France. But I think we'll find out more on Friday in this UK-French summit about what steps will go in the future and also how the French receive this update.
Siobhan, thanks very much indeed, live from Dunkirk for us tonight. Well, let's discuss this further with Conservative MP Danny Kruger, plus the immigration solicitor Harjap Singh Pungal and Kay Marsh from the Dover migrants' rights charity, the Samfire Project. Danny Kruger, first to you. Good to have you with us in the studio. First, let's address what Siobhan Robbins was just saying there. She's speaking to people. They are not deterred. They are desperate. Kay Marsh says people are driven by desperation. This policy isn't going to work because people are still going to take the risks.
Well, isn't it a tragedy that so many people have been, as it were, enticed to the French coast by the prospect of claiming asylum in the UK if they can only make that last hop across the channel, and they're prepared to risk their lives and spend a lot of money to do so? We need to make sure that everybody understands that that won't work. And there is enormous demand around the world. Tragically, 100 million people on the move because of war, drought, all sorts of conflict. And we need to send a strong signal that you can't break into the UK. We have a generous asylum policy. I think there's major improvements that we could make to that, which we could discuss. But the fundamental fact is you should not be allowed to claim asylum if you break into this country illegally. And that's a signal that everybody needs to hear.
Interesting use of words. Some of those have been picked up today by analysts saying there's a lot of scaremongering going on, the use of the figure 100 million, and you've just used the terminology breaking into the country. As I understand it from discussions throughout the day here on Sky News, multiple lawyers have told us that it's not illegal to come to the UK to seek asylum.
Well, no one is illegal in the act of claiming asylum, but the means of entry to the UK are illegal, and that's what we need to deter. We absolutely need a proper asylum policy. We need to be ensuring that people can claim asylum much closer to the region that they are displaced from. We need a proper global route, a safe global route to enable people to come here. Remember, we have a lot of those routes currently. 450,000 people have come to the UK in the last 7 years through the safe and legal routes that we've set up.
But only a limited number of countries,
right?
Well,
there are some global routes.
Rajat Singh Bungalow was telling us.
Indeed. I mean, so the largest numbers have come from a small number of countries. There are a couple of global routes that are available. The problem is they're not working very well, and there's a number of important reasons for that. But we have, through the UNHCR, a global route. What we need to do is to make that work. I'd be interested in thoughts on how to. But the fundamental thing is you've got to go through a legal route to claim asylum. Otherwise, there's no point in trying to have any kind of system that will work. As long as there is the opportunity to come here through illegal means, we will have the crisis in the Channel, and that's what we've got to stop.
OK, Rajat, do you have a response to that?
Well, we welcome the beginning of safe routes. So there needs to be a safe route. What can't happen is that you take away the only route available and then offer nothing in return. So safe routes will act as a deterrent of some sort and will definitely hit the model of the gangs. But it's not the be-all and end-all. There's a lot of changes that need to happen. Faster processing. Why is it taking 2 years to process a claim, which after you've got the evidence, should take a skilled person about half a day? So why is that happening? Why is the Home Office still not fit for purpose after John Reid told us how many years ago that it's not fit for purpose? Why hasn't there been investment? Why is the staff not fully trained? Why, on top of that, are the gangs not sought after? Why are we just saying, OK, we're going to give up on the gangs? And why did we enter into an agreement without any return agreements?
There's a lot of frustration there in that voice. I want to put it to you, actually. Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, said today that it's costing the taxpayer a lot of money. He is right. It is costing the taxpayer a lot of money, but it's not the refugees on small boats' fault, is it? It's a failed system presided over by your government.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to be. There's a lot to fix, and a lot of those problems I absolutely recognise as well. And there are major difficulties with the speed of processing. A lot of that is because of the rights legislation we have, the Modern Slavery Act, things that, frankly, enable claimants to protract their claim and to make it much more difficult to do the processing. But absolutely also, we need to stop the gangs. There's a lot of action being taking place on that front. A lot of cooperation with the French has improved. Major investment in border security. Hundreds more staff patrolling the French coast with paid for by the British. Many more processing officers here in the UK. So there's all of that stuff needs to be done. Absolutely. And we need to improve removals, which we could come on to. But the fundamental fact is, as long as there is the opportunity to break into this country illegally, and that is the description of what happens, then people will continue to do so, because we will never be able, no matter how good our safe route is, to cater to the potential demand in the world. So
the small boats route is not actually the only route that is to blame, right? Right now, it feels like there's a lot of political rhetoric putting all eyes on the small boats and trying to create a distraction, perhaps in the run-up to an election.
Well, that's where the bulk of the illegal crossings are taking place.
But as Rajat said, it's the only crossing possible.
Well,
right
because
now.
we've successfully stopped the route that we were all worried about a few years ago, which was on the lorries and on the trains. So, no, we now have a system that prevents illegal migration on a great scale. I mean, there are other routes, but the big one we need to worry about is these small boats. To stop that, you need to break their business model. That's about enforcement, but mostly it's about sending a strong signal around the world that you will not be able to claim asylum in the UK if you come across the channel illegally.
What would you like to see from this visit with Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron?
So there's two things. One is increased, an improved border security cooperation across the channel. And we do work much better, I think, than we used to with the French. They weren't patrolling their beaches as well as we wanted them to. Them now, I understand there's significant improvement there, but no doubt we can do more. And the other thing we need to ensure is a proper returns policy. So we need to ensure that people who come here from the EU, unless they can be returned directly to their home country, if that's not a European country, and for many it is, remember, we have had 10,000 Albanians come in over the last year. So if they can't be returned to a European country, then they need to be returned to their home country or to a safe third country. All that requires the cooperation of the EU and the French in particular.
OK, are you confident this is legal and this won't be kicked out?
Well, actually, not yet, because we really need to be sure that we probably need to interrogate the details of the law to ensure that, I'm afraid to say, the very activist and very clever legal industry in our country, who are very good at picking holes in the legislation and challenging individual cases, won't succeed. So we need to ensure that this is watertight. I think there is genuine problems with the European Convention on Human Rights, which is what stopped the last...
Rishi Sunak says there's no need
well,
to
indeed
leave it.
not.
Do you want to leave
I think we should be prepared to do so. I don't think there should be any international obligations that stop us enforcing sovereignty over our borders. I believe him when he says that this law will enable us to overcome ECHR barriers, and we should do what's necessary to make sure that's the case.
So you think we should be prepared to leave the
Indeed.
ECHR? Need to give a final word, of course, to Kay Marsh, who works with these people on a regular basis and speaks to people. Kay Marsh, what do you make of what Danny Kruger had to say?
Well, the choice of language was very interesting there. Enticed and things like this, it makes it sound like it's a pleasurable option for people. Which of course it isn't, and I think we need to reiterate the fact that there aren't adequate safe routes at the moment, and we do need to look at that as a priority. People don't want to make these crossings, people want to get here safely. Regarding whether or not this will go through, I don't hold that much hope at all. I don't see any way that it could be in accordance with international law. I certainly hope that it's not.
OK, Kay Marsh from the Dover migrants' rights charity Samfire Project, Rajab Singh Bungal, immigration lawyer, and Danny Kruger, Conservative MP. Thanks very much indeed for joining us for this Sky News special on the small boats. Good to have you with us in the studio.